Everyone. Welcome back to the Personalized Business Advantage. I'm your host, Andrew Colombini, and today we have a very special guest, Juliette Stapleton. We're going to be talking about visibility that sells, how to show up competition free in a world of noise. Now, we're not going to dig too much into human design, although that is something that you use on that. If you guys want more in depth about human design, obviously you can reach out to her. If you don't know already who Juliette is, she's an online visibility strategist, internationally recognized for her direct, non traditional marketing methods. She promotes personal self recognition and self expression through content as a key to ideal client attraction. She's a best selling author and thought leader on the edge of human design and marketing domain. She was featured in Forbes, sharing her insights on staying visible in uncertain times. She was one of the first contributors to write about human design and marketing in major media outlets such as The Entrepreneur and other major online publications. So it's a pleasure to have you on here today. And we are curious how you got into this world and have decided that human design is the tool that you use for it.
It's such a good question. I've always been attracted to the fact that through the online space, through the internet, ever since in 1996 I got my first computer and, dialed in to the internet, I realized you can reach a lot of people. And so you don't have to be stuck with the geographic location when you want to attract people who are like you. I was kind of always into visibility. I was a singer in a band, in my 20s. And this world opened up a new opportunity to put your profile out there and to be available for much more people to see. And it started kind of from there. And then 20 years later, when it became my profession, to build visibility for small businesses, for solopreneurs, for projects, from different industries, from brick and mortar businesses and fashion and music and all sorts of smaller projects, because there is a key to promoting smaller projects and solopreneurs. It's a very different type of marketing than big corporations would use, right? And then around 2020, I came across human design, and I was always a very much personality test junkie. So I always wanted to learn about who I am, why am I this way, and just try and explain things. And human design, for me, it was mind-blowingly strategic. So it gave me a lot of not just understanding who I am. There's a lot of systems like that, and each system gives a different aspect, I think, of sometimes the same thing and sometimes highlights, very specific things that really interesting. So it's not about just human design, but human design is has a very good language that is strategic, and it explains, I think, certain roles that we play. I'm a big geek on profiles and human design. Certain roles that we play and how people perceive us, which is the brand, right? And also how we can express ourselves with all that in mind. And it's usually very natural thing anyway for us to express ourselves this way. But how can we be strategic and conscious about this? And through that, we all sort of singing a song, right? When you're singing your own song, you become magnetic. When you're trying to sing somebody else's song and trying to imitate them, you're going to be maybe a very good imitation if you're lucky, but still an imitation.
Mm.
So my whole thing, and what brings me, to do marketing, I'm so obsessed with not human design as a system. I love it, obviously, but this whole thing that, oh, there is a certain angle. I have in human design, and we're not going to go into details, so what I'm going to say maybe is going to be a mumbo jumbo for someone, but I am a projector by human design. This is my energy type. I'm a projector with a 1-3 profile, so there is 12 profiles and they're identified by these numbers. And a 1-3 is a person who is very intellectual, not just smart, but constantly thinking and processing life, consuming life through their own experience, usually bumping into experiences, and then, processing it mentally constantly and then sharing. So the role of a person like me would be to process things through my own first-hand experience and then tell the world, and usually tell the world what doesn't actually work. And I find that this is very accurate. However, there is the conditioning that through our society, and believes that maybe it's not really nice to talk about yourself all the time. It's not a good thing to be so self-absorbed, and that puts you in this cage. When you start promoting yourself as a business, there's a big spotlight on you. There's a pressure to put yourself out there. How can you put yourself out there in a way that is magnetic, that attracts the right people, but that feels good as well?
Yeah.
And I find that this permission, and this is what human design gave me. Of all the systems, it was the first one. But not the only one, right? But it was the first one for me that gave me full permission to be me.
So we want to stand out and be different, but how do we actually stand out? Okay, I'm my uniqueness and I'm doing this, but to what degree am I actually standing out? Does that make sense if I am?
Yeah.
How do I become competition free? What does that mean as well?
It's a great question, actually, a really good question. And I think that this is about the mindset that we have. Because you're using the words, how do I stand out? How can I be different? And that's very confusing for the brain. If you say to me, Juliette, how can you be different? I don't want to be different. I want to be me. So it's about flipping the coin a little bit. And for me, there's a few elements to being competition free. And I will just give you the elements. We can dig into some of them or one of them, and it's not a system, but it's just like it's a common sense thing. And I think that when you see it, you can't unsee it, right? So I believe that you and everyone is competition free. You don't become it. You are competition free. But there's a few conditions. One, you need to be confident in who you are. To be competition free, you need to become confident in who you are. Tools like human design, different other personalities. I know that you have your own way of profiling. Those things help you, just point you in the right direction. For some of us, some specific systems give more, like I said, it was like permission to be me. This is my experience with human design. Other systems could do that for you, right?
Mhm.
You become confident in who you are and you stop doubting. You stop thinking, oh, is it okay? Like I just gave you an example is of my own life. Is it okay to talk about me all the time? Is it, my own stories, my opinions, my.
Mhm.
And then you come across a system that says, yeah, because you're designed a certain way, there's a role that you are fulfilling, there's a purpose you're fulfilling. This is why you're designed this way. There's actually a really big responsibility that comes with that. So you can't shy away from it. You need to use that. Through that, you are giving people some food for thought, that they start picking into their own situations. When I'm talking about my own um, experiences, you probably will think about, oh yeah, yeah, something like I had something similar, and you can resonate. So becoming confident is really important, and this is something that's in our control. We can work on that, right? The next thing is more about a mindset thing. When we are showing up, you have to remember, people work with people. Now, I want you to tune in and think about, last time you were on social media scrolling by, and you probably have someone who you like seeing, and you see them often, and you kind of, you watch their reels, you watch their stories, and you kind of get drawn into this person, and you have to ask yourself, why am I watching this person? I don't even need what they're selling. And then next thing you know, you're on their sales page checking out that product or that course or that something else. I don't know about you, but I'm there. It's not that I've been there once. I'm there like constantly. I can name a person I'm currently obsessed with. So I'm always, analyzing what's happening. Why am I like this? And the simple truth here is that people work with people. It doesn't matter that there's 100 people who are doing exactly the same thing that you're doing. I'm going to choose you because I'm drawn to you, because I like you, right?
Mhm.
People work with people they like, and they choose people they like over those others in the niche that they're indifferent or they don't like, right? And this is very interesting because when we're showing up, it's not about standing out. It's actually just about being unapologetically you. You will stand out when you're confident. See, it brings me to the first point. And that confidence is magnetic. So the right people, and this is the most magical thing, you don't need to go find your people. You just need to be available to be found by these people. They self-identify because they get really almost obsessed with you for a
Yeah.
while. And this is why online visibility is such a wonderful place, because you can create content, put it out there, and it's actually the safest. It's safer than, I don't know, knocking on doors in real life and, asking people to work with you.
Which
It's
I've
really
done
enjoyable as
personally in
well.
my life. So what I'm hearing you say is Let's shift the focus on becoming my truest expression and assuming that human design is the tool that does that. By following human design, I will become more of myself. And by putting myself out there, I'll naturally attract the people that are supposed to be in my community. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yes, but I'm going to correct if that's okay. This is also part of my
Please.
design, the correction. Because I don't want anyone to start following human design so that they can become the truest version of themselves. It's not about being the truest. This is now we're going into the comparison zone. We don't want to be compared, right?
Mhm.
Just become confident enough to this moment, to this version of you right now. You don't need to constantly feel like you're not enough because there's the truer version of you out there that you are trying to be, but you're not. That's going to stop you from marketing, from showing up, from creating content. It's about becoming okay with who you are, where you are, and having these little mindset shifts that you are permitted to share your opinion.
The biggest question that I would have said in the past is I hear what you're saying, but I don't even know what that means. How I'm not confident. I wouldn't say that I'm a confident person. Like I'm just again playing some role that someone might be thinking. I don't see myself as confident or what do I actually do to get into that place because and this is from what I've studied is a lot of who we what we learn about ourselves is through psychological understandings. This happened to me. I interpreted it. This is what I believe about myself and the world. So, how do I actually become that confident person? Like, what do I do, or what's that shift that maybe I'm not seeing?
It's interesting because I think that a person who would ask that would need to do some personal development work. You know, if you're saying to me, how can I become confident? I don't see myself as a confident person. Then how are you expecting to create online visibility that will sell? It's just impossible. So this is something like a goal that we need to set ourselves. How can I become more confident? I will tell you an anecdote from my own life. I started writing a book on marketing and human design. And I wrote most of it, but I'm not a certified human design analyst. I have no interest in that. And, and I had this writer's block suddenly, which was also in my designs, thinking, who am I? How dare I write a book about human design and marketing? Who's going to call me out? I had this huge block. And in that moment, I looked at the photograph that I chose to put on the cover, and I thought there's a woman there sitting there with her quill, this queen, and she is just sharing what she sees. She's literally sharing her opinion. An opinion is something that you can argue with me that I'm wrong, and if you can convince me, I can even change my mind. It's just my opinion. It's not, I don't have to earn the right to share my opinion because that's all it is. It's what I see. This is also in my design, right? As a 1-3, this is sharing what you see, and all this is so aligned. A human design gave me this permission in that moment to put two and two together, thinking, oh, hang on a second, this is my design. This is my role to share my opinions and personal, unique insights. And in 2 weeks, the book was written because in that moment, I just had this click that I became almost cocky about myself and my opinions, to be honest with you, which might not be such a great thing in my personal life because I could be very heavy with my opinions. But that moment I will never forget. Just sharing your personal opinion, you don't have to have a right.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has to give you, yeah, and it's so liberating. These are the moments when you are studying any kind of systems. It doesn't have to be human design. I love human design. I recently got into Batsi astrology, and some profilings there based on elements were also mind-blowing. But I find that that's more personal development. But in terms of showing up, that's where human design, for me personally, and that's why I wrote a book about it. It's this correlation. How can we strategically apply this to your branding, to your positioning, to how you're showing up? Some people can show up as thought leaders. Others are much more like community centers of community kind of personas. So when you know what and it's not that you just are told, like you can be with the community. You'll sense it, you'll feel it in your bones. Because that's, the human design is based on your birth date. So it's the kind of like imprint that you naturally have. And it's really interesting to me that most of the time, the feedback that I'm getting when I'm talking about these things to individually to people, they're saying, this is how I always have felt, and I never felt like I can express myself this way, or I can do this, I have the right to do this, or it's allowed. And I am the person who says, yes, it is. So with the
Hmm.
confidence, you can become confident. It's up to you, it's your choice. This is why I said this is where we have control. Or you can decide not to put effort, like all humans, we have a choice with everything. But then maybe this type of marketing where you're showing up, where you're in the spotlight, it might not be suited to you, because you
Yeah.
do have to reach that moment of cockiness and just do it.
And something to add to that, because I've studied confidence. I even had a summit years ago on charisma and confidence. Confidence is the third stage, it's the last stage. Nobody just becomes confident. The first step is courage. Courage is to take action, whether you are in fear or not. And the more courageous action you take, considering you have appropriate knowledge of it and the direction and everything's in alignment, you become competent. And the more competent I become around a subject, that's when I become confident. Confidence is a second nature type of thing. And what I'm also hearing you say is that a lot of marketing, especially now with AI generated content, is sharing personal stories. I can look at the seashell right here and I could come up with a story of how it reminds me of the beach, and where I got it was in Hawaii, and I love spending time with my family, and how Hawaii is so far away and my family is so far away, but I'm able to finally connect with them. And I could create a story from pretty much anything. And that's what people are really wanting. The best content I've put out there, the best emails, is when I shared a live, fresh story, an insight that came to me. And of course, I was confident in sharing it because it was a story that came to me. And that I think is really important. When we actually find the right approach, how do you actually help someone find the right visibility approach per se, instead of copying somebody else? And I say that meaning, when we go out into the world of business, really anywhere, there's a lot of people saying, do it this way, do it that way, that's wrong, I found the best way. And you'll see some antagonizing each other, and it can get very confusing. So, how do I know that I'm using the approach that really fits me and reducing my trial and error?
Well, simply put, there's no such thing as one approach that simply will suit you, unless and until you're going to figure out what works for you, test it in real life and see that it brings results, and over time then become competent and confident that this is your approach and it works. And then what can happen, and I am a living proof of that, because you can have a very stable way of things happen, and you get clients in a certain way, and then I don't know, AI is introduced in the world and you're hit with another challenge. But that's life. That is life. And so
Yeah.
adaptation is really important. And I think that the way I work with people is that, yes, we use human design as that map, right? So there's certain energy types that might not do well with certain activities, because maybe they have like an energetic, there is a repelling element in their auras, for example. And for them, doing certain things can be too heavy. Like, for example, I'm a projector. Projectors have this real penetrating aura. We see very deep. We really go, straight. We see misalignment, and we can talk about this. We really want to.
Mhm.
We're very impatient. We want to tell everybody what we see because we're born to be guides. But we have to wait for the invitation. This is our strategy. Why? Because when you're imposing with what you see, other people can be too close. It could be very difficult and heavy. We see vulnerable stuff, and we need to be invited. People need to be open to us. So there's a certain way with the person with this kind of energetics how to show up. Now, on the other hand, a projector, usually very vibrant when they allow themselves, obviously, they can be very, very good at the online visibility if they allow themselves to show up and share these things that they see, but not too individually one-on-one where it becomes heavy, but
Yeah.
generally as a concept. And so this is one of the examples, for example. So we can then we can tailor the business model, how the platforms and even the style of their showing up. We can tailor that to the elements that are more natural to them. And usually the reaction is a relief because
Yeah.
this usually fits.
At the end of the day, it will be a trial and error. I couldn't tell you that I would be here 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Where you get in life and in your business, you take a step, and as you move forward, more paths become revealed. And through that, you find the things that you're seeking. And so,
Mm.
let me ask you this though, when you're working with someone, are there signs of people you're working with that their current visibility strategy is misaligned with how they're designed?
Well, usually it's how they feel. And they, because they don't feel aligned, they start sabotaging themselves, like we all do. When you're not feeling confident that something is, effort is a different thing. A lot of people want ease. I want to kind of dismantle this whole thing about ease. Things require effort, right? So nothing is easy, but it can be
Yeah.
simpler when you recognize that you're self-sabotaging, for example, and then you start asking why. So what we can do is we can explore why, what feels wrong and what feels right. Sometimes what you're doing is actually not wrong, but you're thinking about it in a weird way that doesn't give you permission to do
That
it,
was the
and
what I
that's
was
a
going to
lot of
ask
times
you.
the
This is what I hear a lot working with people in any personality typing system, not just human design astrology, but they're like, oh, well, I'm not designed that way. It doesn't feel right. And so they create these almost misconceptions. How do you discern between someone's, because you said you went back to the feeling of, oh, I don't feel like it. It's like, well, not necessarily. It's actually in like when you hear them say that, it's like it's actually in line with them. But how do you discern between the feeling is a fear, it's based off of something almost irrelevant, versus you're actually designed not to do it this way?
It's interesting. It's a really interesting question. I don't think that there is a direct response to this that I could give you a direct reply. The thing about what you mentioned was very important. We sometimes, and I have done this myself, and I know some of my clients do that, we start using these things as an excuse. We start saying, "Oh, I'm a projector. I don't have sustainable energy." So they procrastinate. And
Right,
I've done this so
exactly.
many times.
This is how I've identified it is we have to be careful with these systems. It doesn't matter what system it is because the ego is
Yes.
super smart and it can be another
Yes.
tool the ego uses to play safe and be in their little corner, if you will.
I love this. I wrote an article about redefining definitions, and it's pretty much about that. Don't take things at face value. Somebody said, manifesting generators are this, and now you're taking this and running with this. No, you have to use critical thinking. You have to observe this. What I love about human design, it's not a system to follow, it's an experiment. It's about observation and becoming aware. And also, I always encourage people to take everything and experience what it means to you. Like, what does it mean to me to get an invitation? It's not just, I know you invited me, Andrew, to this. You literally invited me to this summit, sent me an email. But sometimes the invitation could be a pull towards something. Like, I'm just pulled towards, and I have to discern, am I actually energetically pulled to, for example, study something? Or am I obsessed with the person that I'm seeing reels of and just like getting into that dynamics of getting obsessed with someone? Or I just want to be visible and I really want to be seen by this person and I'm so impatient, and I'm trying to get into their radar. I have to always discern what is this pull, what's happening. Because at the end of the day, we can't, the face value, the language that any system presents is just made up by some human, another human being. Whoever first came up with this gave you this language, but that person also had, let me use human design reference, they also had a certain design. The creator of human design system, Rao Ruhu, his design was to shock you into the next level. And that means that the language that he used was a little bit, and in fact some people find it very difficult, but you have to see beyond that. And I think it's with everything. Because yes, I agree with you 100%. In business, and there's always rules. There's always rules, but I think it's like a buffet. Imagine you're in this at this big event, and there's this big table, buffet table. Everything you want is on it. And you're going there and you're taking something with your plate, and there's this person beside you says, you have to dip this thing into this sauce. You just have to dip it, like this is how it works. And you will you will not know life until you did this. And I just know inside me, my gut, my spleen, I'm a splenic projector, my spleen says, no, this is not safe for me to dip into this, it doesn't look good. And I say, no, thank you. I'm going to take what I think, I'm going to cherry pick what I feel good, and my body says yes. I'm just going to go away and I'm going to be happy. I'm going to present this plate to my people, say, this is the most awesome plate, right? But you have to go and pick your own. And I think that in business, it's the same thing. We have the rules of the game. We have certain rules of the game, but we can still not like feel it or not feel it, but we can still pick and choose and try and test and then cherry pick out of all of this testing what works for you, what feels good, what helps you express yourself through the business, because the business is not just about money and sales and transactions. It's also about what is your purpose? What is the
Yeah,
service that you're bringing? And
absolutely.
I think when you start thinking about it on a bigger level like that, it gives you more responsibility. When you have more responsibility, you will find more discipline to show up and do what you're not feeling on a daily basis. Because I don't wake up in the morning thinking, yeah, let's go get visible. Not at all.
Yeah.
But when time comes, I do all this.
The last question I have for you is on the other side of people who finally find their aligned way of showing up, of being visible, of working their business this way. What are some things that you've noticed in their clients, or if you're able to answer, what could they start to expect that will now open up for them in their lives?
Flow. I think the most important thing that happens after that is flow. And, again, clients, myself, the flow is something is the right thing. You're in there. You know that things are working out, and not that they're working out and now we live happily ever after. As I mentioned, this is a process of evolution all the time. Anything can happen, especially that we're living in such a time, that the fastest paced time ever, in history of humanity. But it's about knowing that you even if you fell off the horse, you can get back on the horse. And I don't know that firsthand. I've been through losing a partner to death. I've just
Mm,
divorced, and hormones, everything, whatever in the book, you name it, I went through it. And being in the flow means that you know that right now you're not in the saddle. You know that. And you know you need rest, and you know you need self-care. But you also know where you are, what is your, you know how to get back into that saddle when time requires. And sometimes when you're ready and sometimes when you're not ready, but this is the right thing to do. And so you can restart and then gain that momentum, stay in the momentum. And then the next time something is thrown at you, again, this process becomes easier and easier. And I think that this is the most important thing, because the journey of business and life is not never going to be just super smooth, and there's never a destination. It is a journey. So
mhm.
knowing how to navigate is much more important than reaching the destination. And this is the book, right? And this book is going to take you through all the basics of human design that you need for visibility anyway. I mean, in your own time, you're welcome to go and study the system. I don't see the point of studying the system, because you have to choose. Are you going to study the system that's going to take your headspace, or you're going to grow your business that's going to also take your headspace? Make your choices and prioritize what you need. But I think that you will enjoy the book. It's very easy read and a fast read. And there's a few, at the end, there's a few chapters randomly kind of picking on different interesting things that were at the time of writing, consuming me in terms of human design and visibility.
Thank you so much for that. You guys heard it. Underneath this video, you'll see a button. Go ahead and click that. You'll get this amazing book in your repertoire to learn even more about yourself. And Juliette, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your wisdom with us.
You're very welcome. And if I may just mention, there's also really cool bonuses for this book as well. So, Andrew, thank you so much for having me today. I really, really enjoyed sharing.
Yeah, thank you. I know I learned a lot. And I know the people are starting to grasp to more the better approach to these systems, because you're absolutely right. Unless you're crazy like us, who love the system, who learn the system, but our business is around the system, right? I just love nerding out on it. You guys don't have to learn the system. You have Juliette as a resource that you can reach out to. You can get the scoop of how to apply human design to your life. If you want to learn human design, great. If you don't, you want to get the best points. That's part of what Juliette's mission is, to help you get that aligned vision. I'm your host, Andrew Colombini, and I'll see you guys on the next one.